Okay, good morning everyone, and welcome to lecture 9 of Grid and Cloud Computing. So, in this lecture, we will continue the discussion of the last class, that is about uh, data center container, right? I told you that container is a similar kind of thing like a big truck, right? In that inside the truck you have servers, and the servers are connected. Just a minute. Okay. Yes, the servers are connected through network connections, so that the data center can be movable from one position to another position. So that is the main motivation why data center is just like a shipping container, just like a truck, right? So that like truck can be moved from one position to another position. Similarly, data center also having all the servers are having in present in a particular truck, right? So this can be movable in from one location to another location. The main motivation behind going for this movable data center is that the power consumption is as low as possible, because you know that in a particular city or particular town, the electricity charge may be little bit more, and some other part of that state or the city, the price is little bit less. So by looking into this, if you go for container based or truck based data center, movable data center, then what will happen? Then you can reduce the power cost by the help of container. Similarly, the computer density is increased. Density means you can say in a particular area, if many people are residing in that particular area, that we call as a population density is very high. Similarly, within a truck, you can minimize the space. Okay, you can use proper space in order to store the computers, in order to arrange the computer systems, and they are present in a such a fashion that most of the many servers can be accommodated in a single you can say single container, right? So computer density is also increased. As I also mentioned that the mobility to relocate data center, the data center can be relocated. For example, now the data center is present in Warangal, so there may be a power supply problem tomorrow, so I can move from Warangal to, let's say, Hyderabad or in a nearer city somewhere, right? So similarly way you can modify so that electricity cost is lower, and cooling of water supply is lower, and housing for maintenance engineer is also not required, because everything will be in that truck, so that you can transport that truck to one place to another place, so that proper maintenance can be done at that end. Okay, so that if you see, for example, if the data center is movable, you can keep the data center near to a river or near to a sea beach, so that 80% of the reduction in the cooling cost is also one of the advantages you will get whenever you will go for such type of data center. But there is some issues with respect to these type of data center. One of the first one is weatherproof and easy to transport. Yes, obviously it is easy to transport, but you have to make sure that whether it is weatherproof. And also you have to take care of the data integrity, server monitoring, and security management, because as it can be moved from one location to another location, there may be some security issues as well. And the integrity of the data can be questioned, right? Well, maybe somebody is manipulating the data, so you have to ensure that such things are not happening whenever you are using such type of container. Next one we'll see here. If you see, there is a if you, for example, now COVID situation is going on. Imagine that for a particular healthcare industry, some processing power is required, some computational power is required, which require high amount of, let's say, storage or high amount of processing power, something like that. So what happens? This drug can be reached to the healthcare industry and do some kind of healthcare works also, right? That's why here data centers can be available in the clinical side. As it is movable, you can keep the data center anywhere where that computational resources is required. And if you see inside this truck, inside this container, you can say, okay, so if you see inside the container, it is organized like this. For example, if you see inside the container, you will see in the bottom part you have 0001, 02, 03. These are nothing but the servers. This you can say server 00, server 01, server 02, server 03. Similarly, this is server 10, server 11, server 12, and server 13. Okay, so in the level 0, if you can see, these are the servers, and this is a switch connected to these servers. Like in a particular, let's say 4 servers, there is a particular switch is there in the level 0. Similarly, there is one port switch are available in the level 1 to communicate from one zone to another zone. If you say that this is your zone 0 and zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, then you will see that it will you can also transfer data from one zone to another zone through this level 1 switch, right? So this architecture is called as B cube network. In B cube network, you are representing this circle by server and this by switch. So I'll tell you the more details about this B cube switch in the next slide. So if you see, as I mentioned, the server is represented in the circle, or switch, or any networking device you want to connect to these circles are represented in the form of rectangle. So level 0 is nothing but all server nodes. As you know, in the bottom level, bottom layer is having the server nodes, and next to the bottom layer, you have various switches. And in each and every level, you have switches to connect from one thing to one server to another server, so that data transfer can happen. So there is a logic here. Whatever you are seeing, this is a B cube 1. So if you want to go for B cube 1, then you have to see the architecture of B cube 0. Similarly, if you go for B cube 2, then you have to go for B cube 1. Like that, you have to process, right? So in order to go for a next higher architecture, you have to see the configuration in the lower architecture. So this is the formula says that B cube K is structured from n B cube K minus 1 with n to the power K n port switches. So if you put this K value as 1, so this sentence you can write as a B cube 1 is structured for 4 B cube 0. So if you see in the previous slides, you have B cube 0. There are 4 B cube zeros, and they are connected through 4 one port switches. So this is a B cube configuration is there inside the container of the data center, so that the data transfer can be done. But if you go for a big data center, right? If you want to club more than one container into a single place, right? For example, in a particular place, I require 5 container. That 5 container is loaded in 5 trucks, right? I need to assemble them. So for that, you can go for MD cube. MD cube is called as a modularized data center cube, right? So in order to form MD cube, you have to rely on the B cube. So B cube is inside the server container. So multiple B cubes can form a MD cube. That is called as a modularized data center cube, right? So it connects multiple B cube container by using high speed switches, right? So whatever switch you are communicating, if it is a high speed switch, then the data transfer from one unit to another unit, it will take less time. So I will give an example of MD cube. Okay, MD cube, you remember MD cube is formed using the B cube, right? So here in the next slide, we'll see one MD cube structure which uses 9 B cube 1 container, right? For example, if you see, each one is called as a B cube 1, right? This container 00 is a B cube. This is container 01 is a B cube. Container 02, 10, 11, 12, 20, 21, 22. Just like you have seen that this thing in the form of a matrix, right? Whenever you are writing matrix, you are writing 0, 0, let's say 0, 1, then 0, 2, something like this, right? Similarly, here you are writing 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 2, like that it will go on, right? So similarly, here we have multiple containers. We have nine B cube container, and combinedly we call it a MD cube. So if you go for individual node, the individual nodes are treated as the container ID plus its own ID, like 00.00.10, 00.01, Similarly, if you go for container 01, this ID you will use for each and every node, like 01.00, 01.210, 01.101, 01.11, right? So first two belongs to the container ID, next two belongs to the node ID. So one node is connected to another node, or we can say this node is called as a server, right? So this server communicated with another server of the container through a high speed switch. So it is represented as switch. So they are organized in a such a fashion that if there is a link failure, for example, this link is failed, you have to ensure that this container can communicate with the other container even if there is a link failure occur. That means it should be fault tolerant. So again, I am repeating, this MD cube is formed by using 9 B cube. So 9 B cubes they we used for the for building a particular MD cube. So you can go for any number of B cubes to construct the MD cube as well. So next is if you come to the data center management issues, data center has many issues like cooling is one of the issue, electricity is one of the issues, and energy management is another issue, availability is issue. There are a lot of issues are there. But after all issues, you have to see that making common users happy. All the users should not be facing problem while they are accessing cloud services. So you have to make sure that whoever is using your cloud service, they should feel happy. So control information flow, and there should be a control information flow, and you have to make sure that whatever resources people are using or whatever information they are getting from the data center, it should be available 24 into 7. Not if not 24 into 7, it should be available near to 24 into 7, so that customer will not feel that the services are not available in a particular time, right? And with respect to the multi-user manageability, there are also a problem like traffic flow is very much important, because whenever a server wants to communicate with another server, it may happen that the channel, whatever used by that server, maybe the same problem happen, the same route is followed by another server as well. For example, if you know that if you are traveling in the same road from Warangal to Hyderabad, if there are so many cars and buses and so many transport so many vehicles are there, then you are facing the traffic issues. The same issue may occur in the data communication also. Whenever multiple servers are sharing the same link to transfer the data, so they may face problem, right? Similarly, if you are using a common database, you have to ensure that database updating also may cause a problem, right? Because the instance whatever you are using, other peoples are also using that instances, right? So if other peoples are using that instances, then you have to make sure that there should not be write conflict or read write conflict, something like that. And maintenance of the data server is very much important, but whenever you go for the container, this server maintenance case can be little bit resolved, because the data center is movable, so it can be moved to the nearest service center so that some maintenance can be done. Scalability to prepare for the database growth is another issues with respect to the data center, in which you know that storage can be increased to any number and storage can be decreased to any number based upon the requirement. Processing, IO, power, and cooling all need to be scalable, right? Everything need to be scalable as per the demand, as per the on demand of the user, so that data center can make all the users happy. The last management issues, you can see that reliability in the virtualized infrastructure. If a particular link is failed, right, it may happen that while communicating a link is failed, you have to ensure that there is another alternate path should be there to reach from one data center to one node to another node. So that is called as your fault tolerance. Or you can ensure that whatever virtual machine you have deployed in a particular data center, that virtual machine can be transferred to another data center so that the problem can be solved. So these are the little bit issues that with respect to data center. Some other issues are like low cost to both users and provider. You have to see that whatever services, cloud services you are providing as a cloud provider, you have to ensure that the cost, whatever you are charging to your customer, it should not be a very high amount, so that the customer will not be happy, right? Customer, it should be affordable to the customer, right? Like I told you in some class that whenever you are using Amazon also providing supercomputing facility, but if you are using the supercomputing facility of Amazon for 1 hour, that 1 hour charge is $1,000 plus. $1,000 plus, it is a very high amount, so you cannot afford that one, right? So whenever a service is provided, so you have to ensure that it should be comfortable to both users and providers. And security policies and data protection should be there. Whatever data stored in the cloud, it should not be leaked to some other unauthorized user, so that the confidential information should not be revealed. Such type of things also are issues of data center. The last one is your green IT. You have to see that how to use some renewable resources, not non-renewable resources, because non-renewable resources is having is impacting our world, our environment by generating carbon dioxide, right? So in order to reduce it, you have to see that how you can deploy the renewable resources in the data center, so that we can call it a green information technology. So if you go for in this session, in this part of the this particular unit, we will see some architectural design of compute and storage cloud. Basically, focus on two type of cloud: compute and storage. It comes under our infrastructure as a service, right? So if you go for this compute and storage cloud, we will see some of the architecture proposed by various researchers about this with respect to the compute and storage cloud. There are a lot of architectures are there. If you study various books, you will find there are several architectures are there. There is no unified architecture. There is no single architecture that is standard in cloud computing. It purely depends upon the you can say that how you are processing the user's work. Based upon that, there are several architectures are designed. But if you see the goals, there are four design goals are there. First one is scalability. You can increase and decrease the resources as and when required. Virtualization gives you flexibility that multiple user can access the same physical hardware. Efficiency of the system should be increased so that multiple works can be done at the same time. Reliability is ensure that even if there is a failure, you can deal with that failure, right? So with respect to these design goals, cloud supports Web 2.0 applications. Remember this very important point. Cloud supports Web 2.0 applications. So by the help of an interface, you can use the cloud services. Coming to the cloud management, receivers receive the user request cloud whenever a user requests a particular service, right? As a user, you can request a particular service to the cloud service provider. So it is in the form of user request. Whatever request you are making to the cloud service provider, let it be cloud service provider. So you can say you are cloud service provider is receiving the user request. So whatever request you are making, that is treated as a user request. So after receiving this user request, what CSP will do? CSP will find a correct resources for you. For example, your requirement is for 2 GB, then CSP will create a virtual machine or will see that which virtual machine is live having 2 GB, so that optimal resource management can be done in the CSP end. And it will provision the services for a particular period of time. For example, I need 2 GB for 2 hours, then this 2 GB for 2 hours will be provided by cloud computing. So one of the example we are using in day-to-day life, like we are using Gmail. So Gmail is a part of the software as a service cloud computing, in which you are getting 15 GB of space. So if you see, your emails are stored in different data centers, not in a single data center. So it is here it is saying that it is stored in 3 disks, which expand to different geographically data center. Why it is stored in 3 different locations? So it may happen that one location may be facing some natural calamity. For example, if you assume that there is some power issues is there in one data center, or there is a cyclone in that data center, this data center is, let's say, damaged. So what will happen? Your emails is stored in this data center as well as this data center, so that you can retrieve your emails using this uh, architecture. So you can say reliability of the system is very high. Even if your emails are deleted here, a copy of the email is available in other data center. So that data center you can access your email. So that is the advantages you are getting from cloud computing. So these are the technologies, if you see, cloud enabling technology with respect to the hardware and software and networking. So you know that whenever you make a request to the cloud computing, it will be deployed in the cloud in a very faster manner, right? Within a fraction of second, they will provide a service to you once the requirement is clear to them. Similarly, you will get virtual cluster on demand. For example, you require a very big computational power, so you may get a virtual cluster that is having maybe 100 and 200 nodes also. That 200 and 100 nodes can be given to you very frequently. So that is also one of the technologies supported with respect to the hardware, software and networking. So then another one is called multi-tenant techniques. Multi-tenant techniques in that if you are using same physical hardware, let's say this is same physical hardware, this hardware is taken by, this hardware can be used by multiple users. So you have to ensure that whatever data is there for this particular user, it should not collide with another user. So this computation of these two computer systems should not be mixed. That you have to ensure in the multi-tenant techniques. So you can process your data. Is massive data processing says that if there is a data is in petabyte or exabyte or zettabyte and very big amount of data, we can process very easily by the help of virtual cluster of the cloud computing. Another one is called web scale communication. Web scale communication says that whenever you go for e-commerce applications or distance education or telemedicine, any type of particular applications based upon their requirement. You can increase and decrease the resources, and based upon their usability, you can apply pay as you go model to charge to that particular users. Similarly, another technique is there that is called distributed storage. As I already mentioned, the data is not residing in a single computer system. It is placed in different location, and one copy of the data is available in the different locations. So that is called as your distributed storage. Data is not residing in a single computer system. It is available all over the world, so that if there is some problem happen, we can retrieve the data from some other sources as well. Last one is called as licensing and billing services. So you have to see that whenever you are using a particular software, let it be MATLAB or let it be some other software you are using through cloud computing. So licensing problem can be avoided because it is the responsibility of the cloud service provider to make the license, right? You need not purchase that license. And the billing services will provide you various models are there in which basis they will charge for you. For example, one can charge per month basis, one can charge per day basis, one can charge per second basis. Like nowadays, mobile providers are charging per second basis, right? Many early days people are charging per second basis. Early that days people are charging whenever they are receiving the phone call. Also they are charged, right? So such type of flexibility is improving day by day, so that people are getting various services in a very easy manner. So here you can see a security aware cloud platform. So we have data centers. This data center is there. This data center is meant for the public cloud. Imagine that all people's emails are stored in this data center. So cloud can give a virtualized compute and virtualized storage and virtualized network resources and software and data sets from multiple data centers to satisfy the demand of the multi-tenant applications. For example, I want to use my Gmail. One instance is created. That instance is extracted from the data center. Okay, that instance is given to the user, so user can execute. User can send email. User can receive email. User can view email. User can deploy a particular application. User can manage a particular application. User can change the application. That kind of accessibility can be there. So if you see this complete virtualized environment, this is a complete virtualized environment, and it will be supporting your SSI, that is called a single system image. So single system image provides that everything will be treated like a single computer systems, right? So that you can provision the resources as a cloud service provider, you can provision the resources to the user, you can apply the virtualization concept so that multiple user can be accessed to the center. User interface is there, like we are using Mozilla Firefox, Google Chrome, Internet Explorer. These are the various interface to use this particular cloud service provider. So clients, whenever a service is initiated by client, what client will do? Client will check the trust delegation, whether the cloud is, whether that particular provider is having trustworthy or not. Like many cloud service providers are there, many new startups are also initiating various activities. So you have to ensure that the trust value should be there, right? So trust delegations, reputation system, data coloring for protecting and cloud resources provision from the data centers. These things you have to see. By looking into these things, and you will see the service catalog, what kind of service a cloud service provider is providing. Some cloud is providing infrastructure as a service, some cloud is providing software as a service, somebody is providing platform as a service. So based upon your requirement, you will see that in the service catalog. Like whenever you are going to a particular restaurant, you are also seeing the catalog, right? So based upon your requirement, you will choose a services. That service will be provisioned virtually through this particular platform. So this is the advantages of this is one type of platform used in the cloud computing. This is one type of architecture you can say used in the cloud computing. So many factors are there. For example, one client can say that security is a major factor. So that can be more focused. That is called as your quality of service. That quality of service will be more focused by that particular client. Now coming to this, you can provision and deprovision the service. Like I can subscribe, let's say a particular newspaper like Times of India for this month. Next month I don't require Times of India newspaper, so I will deprovision the resources, right? So similarly in the cloud services also you can provision, you can subscribe, you can unsubscribe the servers, software and database as per your requirement. So whenever you don't require these services, you can deprovision the resources, and you should not pay for that particular month, right? So consumer don't need to know the underlying infrastructure, where your data is stored, how these data are managed, and what security policies are enforced in these technologies. You need not bother about these things, right? Once you are saying that your security need to be enforced, the cloud service provider will take care of that particular thing in order to provide in order to provide that facility to the user. The location of the data center is chosen to reduce the power and cooling cost. If you are going for let's say a particular location for the data center, you have to see that in that place sufficient power supply should be there and sufficient cooling is there, because all the data center cannot be in the form of a movable data center by the help of the container, right? There is some physical data centers are there. So in that data center, while deploying a particular data center, whether it is Amazon or Google or Microsoft, whatever the cloud service providers are there, they are looking into these two factors, that is power and cooling cost. So data centers are often built around the hydroelectricity power, where power is generated or where your water supply is there, sufficient water supplies are there. In that location, data center is deployed so that you will not face any kind of power and cooling issues in that particular locations. So if you are deploying a private cloud, right? For example, your organization is want to use a cloud that is called a private cloud. So you have to see that it is very easy to manage because it is restricted to a particular boundary and the number of users are also less. But whenever you go for a public cloud, so that is easier to assess. Public cloud is very easy to assess, right? Because anybody can access this cloud and whatever services is provided, that is available to the common public. So this is another type of cloud architecture environment in which you know that there are three types of services. One is infrastructure as a service, which is further divided into hardware as a service, database as a service. Another service we already discussed, that is platform as a service, software as a service. This service can be provided in private mode, private cloud. It can be provided in the public mode, public cloud, or in the private cloud, or a mixture of the public and private cloud, which we call is a hybrid cloud. So you know the difference between internet and intranet, right? So if it is restricted to your institute boundary or your university boundary, so you can say that I can go for intranet services for the cloud, right? But whenever your organization is not in a particular boundary, it is deployed in various places, then you can use the internet to provide the services. So if you see, the bottom layer is having your infrastructure as well as platform, another is applications. Another side, these type of services can be assessed in the public mode, private mode, and hybrid mode. So if you see that within these two layers, right, you can say public, private, and hybrid layer, another side, infrastructure, platform, and application layer, you have a middleware kind of thing that is nothing but your virtualization layer, which is provisioning both physical and virtualized cloud resources to the customer. So this is one type of architecture, or you can say in the interface between the deployment model with the service model. So here, if you see there are three deployment layer implemented, this is implemented through the virtualization and standardization. So this middleware layer will provide you the virtualizations based for your requirement. It will create a virtual machine and it can provide the services to you. So standardization should be there so that a standard service should be provided. Some restrictions should be there by the cloud service provider so that something should not be manipulated, right? You are also requiring the networking support, right? Like internet and intranet. Based upon your type of deployment, you can decide whether internet is required or intranet is required. Especially in the hostel, if you are residing in the hostel, then you know that hostel network is nothing but the intranet one, right? So, but if you want to communicate some outside the network, you require internet, right? So you can deploy this type of structure in the intranet as well as the internet, right? Or you can take the mixture of internet and intranet as well. So we are using the virtualization in the middleware layer so that automatic provisioning of the resources, we can automatically provisioning the resources as per the requirement of the user, or you can optimize the infrastructure management process also, right? So if you are using virtualization, you can see that the resources are used very optimally and the cost is also reduced and multiple users also you can accommodate in the cloud system. So another is virtualized cloud platform serves as a system middleware between the infrastructure and application layer of the cloud. As you can see that in the top layer, top layer you have public and private and hybrid cloud. So that is one layer that is called as your application layer. In the bottom layer you have systems like servers or data centers are there. So there is a middleware which interface between these two layers, right? So in the top layer, if you see in the application layer, whatever users are there, user is using this application layer. If you see this application layer, in the top part application layer, user can use this particular cloud service provider through by the help of the web interface, just like Mozilla Firefox you can use to access your Gmails, or you are using your browser to open your Facebook, or you are using web to WhatsApp to view your messages of the WhatsApp. The same thing you can do in this application in order to enhance the customer relationship management, if CRM is required to a particular industry, or financial transactions or supply chain management. With respect to a particular business applications, you can do a lot of applications in the top layer. And while you are serving these particular services, you have to ensure the quality of service parameter. I already mentioned that if somebody will ask you about water, you can provide any type of water. But if somebody is telling about cold water, so you have to provide the cold water. Until otherwise, the quality of service is violated. So one user can ask for quality of service in terms of time, cost, reliability, trust, and security. Right, so these are the factors we can use in the quality of service parameter, and these parameters you have to write while signing the agreement. That is called your service level agreement. So based upon the service level agreement, there is another type of architecture in the cloud computing that is very famous architecture proposed by Professor Rajkumar Bhuya, that is called as your market oriented resource management architecture. This market oriented resource management architecture is designed so that supply and demand should be balanced, right? So if you know that in this COVID scenario, we are not getting vegetable, right? So the vegetable cost is increasing, right? So you have to ensure that both supply and demand should be in the equilibrium condition, right? So similarly, the resources whatever we have as a cloud service provider, and the resources whatever required for the user should be balanced. So supply and demand, if it is balanced, then you can maintain a particular equilibrium conditions, right? So in order to interface with this architecture, there is two things. You can use the user or you can use the broker. For example, you don't know how to use the cloud services, you will take help of the broker to use the services, right? So broker can subscribe a particular service for the user, right? So while you are submitting the request to the first the service will be examined. If the service will be provided by that cloud computing, that cloud provider will check that whatever requirement you are asking, whether that requirement can be accepted or not, right? So for example, you require, let's say 100 GB, for example, 100 GB of processing power, but the cloud service provider cannot provide you 100 GB of processing power. So what it will do, it will simply reject your request, right? If it can provide, it can accept your request. Then next to this user layer, you have a SLA resource allocator. This SLA resource allocator is a interface between the data center and the user and broker. So it is just treating like a middleware whatever you see in the last architecture. So this request examiner, as I said, that request examiner will check whether your request will be accepted or rejected. So it will check that whether the resources are overloaded or underloaded. If the resources are not fully overloaded, then the request can be give the resources whatever the user is asking that can be provided to that particular user, right? Then the request examiner inside this SLA resource allocator, you have another unit that is called as pricing mechanism. Pricing mechanism is of two types. One is called as peak hour price and off peak hour price. Now you know that in mobile phones, early days, if you remember, many companies are launching offers between 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. So you can recharge, let's say 5 rupees or 7 rupees or 8 rupees, some small amount, and you can unlimited call from night 11 to 6 a.m. because this is a off-peak hour. Nobody is using their resources in this off-peak hour. Okay, but the services will be restored. They are charging as usual from morning 6 a.m. to night 11 p.m. So similarly in the cloud also, there is a peak hour and off-peak hour to charge to a particular customer. So you can also charge a fixed price or you can charge a variable price in cloud computing based upon the supply demand. Also, you can select various pricing mechanisms. So this is the complete architecture what we discussed in the previous slide. So first part is user and broker. You can say these are the users, and there may be a broker can also the systems, right? So next layer is SLA resource allocator. SLA resource allocator will check that whether your request, whatever you are making the request to the cloud, that can be accepted or rejected. So this SLA resource allocator having two important things. One is called as customer driven service management, and another is computational risk management. Both factors should be combined in the SLA resource allocator in order to provide better services to the user. So this pricing scheme will decide whether your off-peak price or on-peak price you require. Then in the bottom layer, you have physical machines. This we call as a data center. Now we will get a complete picture of the data center. This complete one is called as your data center. Inside the data center, you have various servers. These are called as various servers. So in a single server, you can create multiple virtual machines. For example, if you see this particular server, this server is having three virtual machines. But if you see this particular server is having two virtual machines. Another, this particular server is having two virtual machines. So based upon the capability of the particular server, you can deploy multiple virtual machines, right? So these virtual machines are monitored in this particular unit, that is VM monitor is monitoring, okay, and how much money, how much charge price a user has to pay, that will be decided by this accounting unit, right? And dispatcher will do which user's work will be mapped to which virtual machine, that will be decided by the dispatcher. For example, this user is executing in this virtual machine, that this user is executing in this virtual machine, that will be decided by this particular dispatcher. So this is a architecture proposed by Professor Rajkumar Bhuiya in maybe in 2011. There is a very excellent paper, a research paper of Professor Rajkumar Bhuiya, which represents this particular architecture. So this cloud also deprives the appropriate, as I mentioned, that this market-based resource management encompasses two things, that is customer-driven service management as well as the computational risk management. Both can be clubbed in the SL-oriented architecture in order to provide various services, right? So it also create various virtualizations. It also create various virtual machine on top of the physical machine. So virtualization is supported by this architecture. Virtualization support, or you can say disaster recovery. If some problems can happen, then it can be restored by the help of other physical machines as well, right? So there is an important task in this particular architecture is that how to find the physical machine for a particular virtual machines. For example, a user is asking for 2 GB. I have created a virtual machine of 2 GB. Then I have to decide that this particular virtual machine should be deployed in which server, right? Which server I am going to deploy these virtual machines. So that is called as VM to PM mapping, right? That is called as virtual machine to the physical machine mapping. So that can be also one of the important aspects of this particular architecture. This is one type of architecture more same as the previous architecture, in which you can see that in the bottom layer you have data centers, that may be a storage, that may be a network. One can say that this is a server, these are the storage, this is a network, and this is the storage. So bottom layer you have the data center. So in order to get the services of the data center, what you are doing, you are creating virtual machine, or you are creating virtualization things, right? Virtualization technology you are applying, which is represented in this particular layer, and they are connected through some interconnection devices like a switch, router, gateway, something like that. In the top layer, you have application type of services, and this is a complete the virtualized infrastructure which provides the load management, which server is loaded, which server is overloaded, which is underloaded, which server is not on, which server is on and not doing any work. Everything will be managed by this load management. Similarly, resource deployment, security management, data management, resource provisions. These are the various architectures are there. But for a user perspective, this complete architecture is not shown to the user, right? User is not seeing this particular architecture. So this is treated as a black box. So if you are studying software engineering in software engineering, you will study something called as black box. Black box indicates that nothing will be shown to the user. If you will show this thing to the user, so user will see the complexity of the infrastructure, right? So in order to avoid the complexity of infrastructure, what you can do, this will be treated as an abstract view for that particular user. So such type of architecture is also developed in cloud computing. So these are the three popular cloud service provider. You know that Amazon is providing cloud service provider, that is the cloud name is called as Amazon Web Service. Microsoft is providing cloud, that is called as Microsoft Azure, and Google is also providing one cloud, that is called as Google App Engine. So you can create a account in the Google App Engine. Maybe in the afternoon you create Google App Engine, and you can use some resources that is available in Google App Engine. That is a free account given by Google. You can use your Gmail password, Google your Gmail username and password to access the GAE. So what services they are providing? They may provide the computational cloud, they may provide the storage cloud, they may also provide the network cloud, right? These are the three services are provided by these three, AWS and Microsoft Azure and GAE. And there are various functionalities they are providing, which we'll discuss in the next class. That is details about this particular architecture. We'll discuss in the next class. Next chapter, you can say, next chapter, the details about this architecture, their architecture, how they are creating virtual machine, how they are providing the virtual machine to the user. We'll discuss in the next class, right? Okay, this is the last slide. Just I'll take another 1 minute. So if you see that there are two different architecture is there. So one is called as the traditional architecture. If you go for the traditional one, you have to configure the hardware, right? Hardware configuration is the job of the user. Then you have to install the operating system. You have to configure your operating system. What you are doing whenever you are purchasing a particular computer system, also you are doing the same thing. Install backup agent and start single step recovery. Everything is managed by user only. But whenever you will move to the cloud architecture, these things will be managed by the cloud, right? So this VM configuration and data recovery, everything will be taken care of the cloud, so that if any natural calamity happen or there is some failure occur in the data processing, so that can be avoided, that can be dealt by the cloud service provider. So that is the advantages you are going to get by the help of cloud computing. So we'll stop here. In the next class, we'll continue our discussion.